Hi, my name is Audrey Burton-Bethke, and I am the Myeloma Crowd Community Manager. Welcome to the Connect with the Myeloma Crowd Chapter as part of the Myeloma Crowd Community program. I'm going to be sharing some slides with you today and have a couple of welcoming announcements as people join us. All right, I can move this out of the way and get us started. Today's session will be recorded, and this recording, along with the slides, will be sent out to you within 48 hours of the event's conclusion. A thank you to our sponsors, without whom this would not be possible: Bristol Myers Squibb, Amgen Oncology, Genentech, Adaptive Biotechnologies, Sanofi, Oncopeptides, Karyopharm Therapeutics, and Takeda Oncology. Today's topic is going to be furthering myeloma research by connecting and validating your records through HealthTree Cure Hub. I have many members of my team here today to talk to you about HealthTree Cure Hub and the validation process, and also why it's important to connect our records, because it truly does further myeloma research. I'm really excited for you to hear from them, and I'd like to briefly introduce them. First, I'd like to introduce Jenny to you. Jennifer Ahlstrom is a myeloma survivor, patient advocate, wife, and mom of 6. She's a believer that patients can accelerate a cure by weighing and participating in clinical trials. Jennifer is the founder of the Myeloma Crowd, the Myeloma Crowd Radio, and the HealthTree Foundation. Anna Sagun is an engineer and psychotherapist. She has experience in both fields and loves them equally. She leads the patient experience team at HealthTree, and she's passionate about talking to patients and empowering them. Whenever she's not working, you'll find her exploring the world, eating different kinds of food, or skiing. Todd Foster is also joining us. He is the head of product at HealthTree. He's an He is an IT healthcare executive who specializes in patient experience and clinical process improvements. Todd was director of patient and provider experience at MD Anderson for over a decade. Todd has a passion for using technology that can help patients have a better life, and along the way, help to further research for a cure. With that being said, I'd love to turn the time over to my team to start the presentation. Take it away, guys.
Well, welcome everybody. We're excited to get started with this today. Our topic today is furthering myeloma research by connecting and validating your records. And Anna, do you want to share anything before we get started?
Well, we're just super excited to have you here. We usually get a lot of questions about this process and what's behind. So we decided to invite Jenny so you can hear everything from her. And later, Todd is going to talk about security, and I'm going to talk about the process. I'll turn the turn to Jenny.
So I just wanted to start this out with a story, because this story is what really started the whole HealthTree software platform and what we call now the HealthTree Cure Hub. So my brother-in-law was David Ahlstrom. He was my husband's brother. He was 33 at the time he was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia. This is a picture of his family. He was on the cover of the Huntsman Cancer Institute. They called him Miracle Boy because of this experience that I want to talk about. 6 months into his treatment, he was you can go to the next one. He was in the ICU, just holding onto the bed, looking at a picture of his family and just trying to survive. The doctors told him he had probably 48 hours to live. His heart rate was so high. And they just said, we're really out of options. We don't have any treatments we can give him that are standard of care. He didn't qualify for any clinical trials, and you're being really unkind to keep him alive. So of course that was a very shocking and troubling message for us. My husband had done some research showing that he had a CD33 protein on the surface of his AML cells. So he asked the doctor to give it to him off-label. And because, okay, if you're turning cure over to us, this is what we would do. And we don't really know, because we hadn't done a lot of the research, but we had done that part. And they said, yes, you can contact the inventor of the drug, or Bernstein, who was at the Hutch at the time, who had invented this first antibody drug conjugate in AML. So Paul, my husband's kind of type A, he got him on the phone that night, and he connected him with the head of Huntsman. And the head said, sure, go ahead and give it to him. So this is David 48 hours later. What really struck us, and he lived another 6 months after that, which was really meaningful, because 6 months with kids who are all, 6 kids who are all under the age of 8 is pretty significant. That was kind of left this indelible burn into our memory that David's experience was lost on all the other AML patients. That drug, Mylotarg, was the first antibody drug conjugate. It didn't get approved until 14 years later for that indication. So younger patients with CD33 protein on the surface of their AML cells. What a loss for patients at Huntsman. What a loss for patients in the general AML community that data was never captured or shared. So as we think about this HealthTree Cure Hub idea, that's what really started this idea is, so we built a pilot product, kind of like an alpha product, and we took it on the road in 2018. Todd was at some of those meetings, and the most common questions that we got were like, who are you? Why are you doing this? And what are you going to do with my data? Those are very valid questions, and we got them at every meeting. What we realized is that it was less about sharing the idea behind sharing our myeloma stories with one another was the most important reason of the why. You can go to the next slide. We met with 860 patients on that tour. Some of you might have been in those meetings, and it was an opportunity for us to listen and learn. So how do we answer those questions? Who are we? We're patients ourselves. I was diagnosed with myeloma in 2010. My goal is to find a faster cure because we might not have time to wait on the research. I mean, when you think about 14 years to get a new drug in development, that's a long time. And a lot of myeloma patients don't have the luxury of that time. What are we doing? We are securely sharing our myeloma stories to benefit one another. So we take our experiences and we put them together. And in these meetings, we would ask people to sit next to someone that they didn't know and share their myeloma story for a minute or less. And, like 30 seconds in, the tears would come, and our myeloma stories are emotional and they are important. And we would always learn something from the person that was sharing. Then we would turn around and share our myeloma story with the person sitting next to us. So HealthTree Cure Hub is sharing those stories, not just with one myeloma patient, but with thousands of myeloma patients to see what we can learn together. Why are we doing it? Because, go back for a second, aggregated, accurate data can answer amazing questions and do it in a faster, less expensive way, but still a credible and data-specific way. Okay, next slide. If you look at how traditional research is done right now in the community, it's slow and it's expensive. So usually an investigator has to go find funding for their idea. They have to get an IRB approved, which is an institutional review board approval to run their study. They go find funding and then they run the study. So who funds studies typically? Like pharma companies fund research to advance FDA approvals. So you'll see that all the time. And that's exciting and wonderful because we need new drugs in this armamentarium so we can split them up between different types of patients. The NIH has limited funding for cancer research in general and for myeloma specifically. So who would even perform and fund studies even about what's happening in the real world? 10 years ago when I was first diagnosed, you didn't really hear a lot about real world evidence. It was kind of like poo-pooed. But real world evidence is becoming more and more important. What is happening in the real world? Who's doing the best on what type of drugs? And in doing some of the initial research that we've done using the HealthTree Cure Hub, we're realizing that there's a lot of low-hanging fruit with simple answers. And I can give kind of an example. We haven't shared the data yet, but I'll give an example a little bit later. Okay. So here's what we've done so far in the HealthTree Cure Hub. We currently have over 9,000 patients who are participating. We have a lot of you who participate very regularly on the studies and the surveys. And we're working currently on how to provide the data back to you if you've participated in a study, because as patients ourselves, it bothers us that we participate in a study and we have no idea what the answers were. So that's one important thing that we're working on, how to do that appropriately in the Cure Hub. So far, Mike Thompson has asked questions about what vaccinations you received after myeloma treatment. Just to give you an example, for him, he said that would have taken him 2 years and over $150,000 to perform that survey. And we were able to do that for free for him in less than 2 months with over about 500 responses. So truly incredible. And we're providing this service to the academic investigators for free. He also asked a question about which imaging tests that had been performed. We did some genetic molecular testing, a survey about that, like what type of testing have you gotten done? We did a psoriasis and myeloma. We found that in the full health profile that it was the most common autoimmune disorder to be associated with myeloma patients. So we did research about that. Dr. Alawati at the Mayo Clinic in Florida wanted to know what patient perceptions were about clinical trials. Dr. Gowan wanted to know about how patients use integrative medicine. And then Dr. Hillengass at Roswell Park wanted to know about how, if fitness affects how you feel emotionally. These studies are past studies as well. So for example, when COVID hit, we were very well positioned to launch a big COVID study. So in that first part 1 of the COVID study, we had over 1,300 patients participate. In our part 2 study, we've had over 1,000 patients participate. We're doing additional work on genetics and real world outcomes. You can see kind of what we're working on. But, okay, next slide. And this is a little bit more information about the COVID study. So we had 1,200 participants, and we're in the process of packaging that up to share it back with people who participated. So as 151 patients, for example, indicated that they delayed, postponed, or stopped a myeloma treatment, and DARA, Revlimid, and transplant were the most common. And 77% of patients who participated in this study have received a COVID vaccine, which is really exciting that they've done it. Okay, keep going. So now we are kind of moving forward. We've gotten our feet wet a little bit with this process, and now we're doing more studies. And you can see some of the examples of things we're working on. One of the big things we want to work on is genetics. When myeloma is broken down by genetic feature, who does best on what type of therapy? And then, of course, we have some COVID follow-up that we're currently working on. In the future, we're partnering with academic investigators like Dr. Hillengass at Roswell Park. He wants to do an actual study with a Fitbit for smoldering myeloma patients to see if fitness and delays smoldering myeloma progression. Dr. Urvi Shaw at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, she wants to do a study. We're going to do an initial study, a pilot study for smoldering myeloma patients to see if a plant-based diet has any impact on smoldering myeloma progression. And then we'll do follow-on studies, probably multi-year studies on CAR T cell real-world experiences and bispecifics. I mean, this is a whole new era that's opening up for us as myeloma patients. And we could really benefit by finding out, okay, what's working the best and who's it working best for, and when is it best used? Those are questions that we all have as myeloma patients, especially about these new immunotherapies. So that's where we're headed. Now, what Todd will talk about is this slide, but the point I want to make before Todd takes over is that when we think about these surveys and studies, we have to have accurate data. So when we invite you to connect your records to HealthTree Cure Hub, what we're inviting you to do is to provide this accurate data so that we can go through it and validate it. You'll notice in patient profiles when you go into the Cure Hub, if yours has been validated, it says validated on there, and then we're revalidating. Anna can talk about this on an annual basis. We have to have accurate data to publish on information, and any data that's gathered is aggregated and never personalized. So I'll let Todd take over from here. But I just want to give you a little bit of backstory about the why behind why we are doing these surveys and studies. We're trying to learn faster. We're trying to really move the bar for myeloma research with you. And in the past, patients have never really had the tools that they need to be able to contribute in a meaningful way to academic research. And now they do. We can do more than participate in a clinical trial. We can really move the bar as fast as we want to help these academic investigators come to better conclusions and develop new hypotheses much, much faster, because now we have the tools to do that. So thanks.
All right, thanks, Jenny, and thank you all for being here. I'm excited to talk with you a little bit about your data and how we keep it secure. So the biggest thing, we get lots of questions about this from patients. So these are very common questions and concerns, and we want you to know that any data that's in our system, we do not consider it our data, we consider it your data. It is the patient's data. You're the one that has the right to do with it what you want to do with it. If you have data in our system and decide you're uneasy about that and ask for it to be deleted, we delete it immediately, and there's no trace of any of it in our system. Your personal information, like your name and your email, phone number, addresses, things like that, are never shared with anyone unless we have your permission to do so. We also track who has access to your account within HealthTree. So employees can look at accounts, and we know who looks at what accounts, at what time, how long they've been in there. And that's a part of a common practice to do for security as well. The biggest thing that we want you to know is that we understand that handling your personal information with care is one of our most important responsibilities. We don't treat it lightly. HealthTree utilizes some of the most advanced technologies and security practices in the industry to ensure that your data is stored safely and securely within HealthTree. So if you can go to the next slide, I'll try not to get too technical here, but I just want to explain a few things about what we do to keep your information secure and out of other people's hands that shouldn't have it. There's three areas to secure: the database, where the data lives, the website when you're accessing Cure Hub and looking at your data, and then when the data is moving between the database and your website, are the three areas that we have to keep safe. So we use Google Cloud environment to store our data. That's where the database is. All the information is secure. And because of Google Cloud, we can ensure that the data is available when needed and that all the latest in physical securities are in place. Google's data warehouses are very, very secure. Double, triple, quadruple, access points to keep secure and keep the data safe in their data houses. Security updates are applied as soon as they become available. That's a very common practice, and we follow that practice. And all the data is encrypted at rest. So what that means, when your data is sitting in the database and nobody's accessing it, you're not logged in and your data is not traveling to your website, it's just sitting there at rest, it's encrypted. And this means if someone were able to get their hands on the data, they could not read the data. They'd have to have a special key that's located in a completely different place. Highly unlikely they could get to that. So if they were able to find the data and get to it, it would be encrypted and they wouldn't be able to read it. From your website, when you're accessing the data, we use firewalls. And again, a common practice to block unauthorized access into your website as you're interacting with Cure Hub. Another thing that we did and will do on a regular basis is we hired some security experts to try to find vulnerabilities in our website. So they sat down, they took about a month and a half, and they tried to break into our website and do everything they could to break in and try to get access to information they should not have. The good news is they were unable to break into our website, but they also did some more testing and found 4 areas where we did have some vulnerabilities, and we corrected those within 24 hours. And so the websites, we feel confident that they're secure and safe. And then finally, the last one, when your data is in transit. So when it's traveling from the database to your computer, if you're accessing Cure Hub, it's traveling through the internet, and that needs to be secure as well. We use, again, I'm trying not to get too technical, but we use secure socket layer, SSL, and it's a way of transmitting data confidentially. It encrypts the data as it's traveling. So again, if someone were to be able to hack in and get that, it would be encrypted, and they wouldn't be able to read or make sense of any of the data that they were able to steal. Those are the main things that we do to keep your data safe and secure and out of the hands of people that should not have any access to your data. And now I think I turn it over to Anna.
Thank you, Todd. Okay, so I'm going to explain a little about what the validation process is and the 2 different ways we can do it. So the first way is by signing the consent. When you sign the consent on our website, that's an electronic consent, we request your medical records from your facility, and then we wait for them. With your medical records, we validate your data. And what does that mean? It means that we make sure that the information that you've entered in our website is correct, it's accurate, and we fill in any information that you didn't. So that way we can ensure that all the information that you have on your profile is accurate. If you want to, for example, find your twin after your profile is validated, you'll know that you'll find the right twin because your genetics have been entered correctly. After your profile has been validated, we send you a validation email. In that email, you can request a phone call with our team. And that's especially if you have any questions, if there's some information that you don't understand and you want us to explain, we'll be really happy to do it. If you're not sure about what your labs mean, your genetics, any information in your profile, we can explain that to you over a phone call. And I think that's a really helpful resource. Also, if you notice that something is not quite right, medical records are almost always correct, but not all the time. So what I would do is when I get that email, just go through all the information and make sure that is correct. If you have any questions or concerns, we can help you. And then we revalidate every profile each year. So that means that once a year, we'll go and request your records again, and again, go through all the information, fill in the blanks, and make sure that everything that you have on your profile is correct. If you are sorry.
Oh, can I jump in just to say something?
Yeah, of course.
So this is so important. As we were going through some of these records, we found sometimes patients remember everything. Sometimes patients remember nothing, like about prior treatments. And sometimes, we found one case where it was a major academic institution, very well known in myeloma back east. And the treatments were not correct. And so the patient was able to say, no, actually, I went off this drug and came on this drug at this time. So it's really, really important that we go through this validation process with you for 2 reasons. First of all, you may have some corrections, And second of all, it helps you learn a little bit more about your care, like your genetic features, like what Anna is saying. So we want you to be involved. We love for you to, connect your records and everything, and have our team do it. But it's also important for you to learn how to do part of it or some of it maybe, because it will help you learn more about your myeloma. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Jenny. Yeah, agree. We're always happy to help, but everything that you do by yourself, it's learning, and patients really like that. Okay, and then I was just gonna mention, if you're in international patients, we've gotten medical records from international facilities. Our consent works, but sometimes it doesn't. So just if you have questions about your facility in your country, just call us and we'll for sure do all that we have in our hands to figure that out so we can get your medical records. And then
I'm going to interrupt you too, and just we'll mention this later, but we are going to have a webinar next week specifically for international patients, because it can get confusing. Which of the features applies to me? How does it work for me as an international, or as somebody living outside of the United States? So that's going to be next week as well for those who are interested in that.
Thank you, Audrey. Yes, and then the other way is by electronic records. That's your patient portal. That can be like My Chart, My Health Plus, etc. And you can share your credentials. Once you share that, we do the validation. We send the validation email, and we revalidate each year. Some patients ask, what's best? I would say both of them. The patient portal, it helps us access faster, and if you need like a faster validation, because you have a second opinion consult with a myeloma specialist, or you just relapsed and you want to have all your information so you can go and look at your treatment options or clinical trials. A patient portal can make it faster. But at the same time, the paper records sometimes it has valuable information that's not on the patient portal. We've found valuable information in the doctor's notes written by hand. So I would say both would be the ideal, but whatever you feel more comfortable with, that can work, and we can work with that. So I'm going to explain real fast how you would do this on HealthTree. Once you log in, you click on medical records on your left, and you'll find a video from Jenny. It's really good, that explains why we do this, and it might answer some of your questions. And if you want to know what you're consenting to, you can just scroll down and click on what am I consenting to, and you'll get all the information there. After that, you can click on add new medical record connection and type your facility. You'll get a drop-down list. If your facility is not on a list, almost every facility in the US is, but if you don't find it for some reason, we'll ask you to complete your facility's information. And after that, you can choose if you want to give us access to electronic and paper records, or only electronic or paper. So that's up to you. Then you'll see your name and your last name. We auto-populate that information, but you can just double check. Sometimes you have, you didn't add your middle name at HealthTree, or your last name is not complete, or if anything, any information might be different from what they have at your facility. This is the time to review it. And then we'll get your address, and you get a digital signature that you can do on your computer, iPad, iPhone, any phone, and you can submit. You click on submit signature, and that's how you will sign the consent. We'll get that, and we'll request your records. And then for the patient portal, you just enter your portal username, your password, and the portal website. We've got some questions about the portal website. If you don't know what the website is, you can just mention which facility is that, and we'll find out. But just so you know, that's the URL that you get on top when you are accessing your portal website. And for example, this is My Health Plus at Intermountain. It can be My Chart, depending on the portal that your facility uses. And then you just click on Save and Continue. If you have any questions about this process, as of how to sign the consent, give us your credentials. If you need us to validate your profile faster, we can do that. We do answer phone calls, really quick chats, and we are there. We want you to use HealthTree when you need it. So if you just relapse, if you're having a consult, we'll be really happy to do that as fast as we can. And now, well, we have time for questions, and we'll be really happy to answer those.
Yeah, thank you, Anna and Jenny and Todd. I appreciate the way that you talked about, why we're doing what we're doing and the security behind what we're doing, and then the actual process, because I think that gives people the whole picture. As Anna stated, it's now time for question and answers. You can ask your questions. At the bottom of the screen is an icon that says Q&A. Feel free to ask your questions there. We've gotten a couple already, and I think the biggest question that people have is, how long does it normally take to get it done, and how can they know where they're at in the queue?
Yes, I can answer that. So for paper records, that's hard because it really depends on the facility, and it's a hard process. We usually ask them to send them electronically, but some of them like mailing those. So we also have to scan them, and then we destroy them and we save it in your profile. So that will be longer. I would say around a good time would be around 2 weeks, but that's like the perfect scenario. I would say around a month. If you give us your patient portal, it would take around a week, but we can definitely do it faster. So again, if you want us to work on your profile as soon as possible, we can do that. Just give us a call. I didn't write the phone number, but it's 800-709-1113, or email us at support@healthtree.org, and we'll be really happy to do it for you.
Thank you. And I will be including how to contact Anna and her team in the follow-up email that will include the recording and the slides within 48 hours of the event's conclusion. We have another question. Can doctors access the data from HealthTree Cure Hub?
So let me take that one. When they post survey or study questions or full studies, we give them de-identified access to some of the data. For example, when Mike Thompson wanted to do this study on vaccinations, we gave him back all de-identified data, but just the answers. So he could see how many patients were vaccinated for pneumonia or for the flu or with shingles and what kind of vaccine they received. He didn't see any specific patient data. We don't share that with them. If they are doing a deeper study, they never see the identified data. They will always see de-identified data. What we would like to do, and what we've already built actually, is a telemedicine platform. So ultimately, what we would like to do, and what we're working on, is creating a researcher portal where they can pose questions, but they can also see their own patients that they care for if you provide consent to see their information. So let's say you want to get a second opinion and you are able to do it via telemedicine. I actually did this with a doctor when I was getting multiple opinions on what I should do next for my care. And we only used HealthTree for the consult. So I had made sure everything was in there. It was all validated. And he said that was the most efficient consult I've had for a second opinion, because I've been to 3 different facilities and we put it into one place. So everything was just in a single spot. And we went through my genetics and my prior lines of treatment and my imaging notes and everything, using our telemedicine software. We were doing kind of a pilot. And he said that was a fabulous experience. So that's something that we want you to do. And in that case, the doctor would see your data, but you would provide consent for that specific doctor to see your data. So that was a long-winded answer, but hopefully that makes sense.
No, it was great. Let's talk about how often should they be updating their records. I think or their profile. We have a couple people saying, I get new medical records every month. Should I update it? Do you do that for us? I get blood tests monthly. Do I update that? So what's that process like?
And I think somebody should address HealthTree Connect. Todd or Anna, if you want to do that.
So I can do that. So, and then Anna can talk about the process a little bit. So HealthTree Connect is an app in the Apple Store. So it only works with iPhones, does not work with Samsung. Apple has worked with thousands of hospitals all around the country, and with HealthTree, well, with Apple Health, you can connect your phone to your medical records in your EHR system with your facility. Just since we were talking about security and stuff like that, it's important to note that Apple, none of your data goes to any Apple servers. It travels directly from your EHR system to your telephone. So some people get nervous if Apple has their medical data, and they do not. So this is
why it won't even work on an iPad. It only works on the iPhone because they didn't want to provide 2 devices for data transfer. And what Todd's saying is correct. It only works on the phone.
Yeah. So if your facility is working with Apple Health and you connect your Apple Health to your facility, all your records will be downloaded to your phone. And then HealthTree Connect is an app in the Apple Store that you can download, and you sign in with your same Cure Hub credentials, and it will load all of your labs into Cure Hub automatically for you. You won't have to manually enter everything. One thing to note on that is some people think that once you connect it and download all your labs, it'll continue to do that every time you get new labs. You do have to go into HealthTree Connect and push the upload button every time you have new labs so that those get uploaded into your profile. So hopefully that makes some sense. That is how HealthTree Connect works. We are working on some other ways to get your medical information into Cure Hub without using, if you don't have an iPhone, for example, and a Samsung, there are some other ways that are, give us the possibility of making that work. And we're working on those, but they're not available yet.
Thank you, Todd. Yeah, and then about labs, you don't need to update them every month unless it's helpful for you, because sometimes it is. Once you're working on them, you realize how you're doing, especially if you are under treatment. What's most important? The labs before you start a treatment, and then some during, and then at the end of the treatment. So when we do research, we can compare everything that happened before and after that treatment. If you need help with your labs and you want us to update them every month, we can do that. Just send us an email to support@healthtree.org and with your name, and we'll be really happy to do it. We're also working on more technology to do this on a more effective way, and hopefully we'll be there soon. But for now, that's the way to do it. Also, if you're having, again, a consult with your doctor and you want to have your latest labs or your latest information, we can do that. Remember that you can print your summary at HealthTree and you can take it to your doctor, and it's kind of like the greatest myeloma picture that you can take. And some patients also like taking their iPad and showing their profile to their doctors. So it depends on what you prefer. And so, yeah.
Thanks, Anna. Just one thing to add to that. If you are looking at clinical trials, so there's a clinical trial finder within Cure Hub. It does look at your most recent labs to determine what clinical trials you would qualify for. So if you are 3 or 4 months behind, in labs that are in the system, that's what the clinical trials finder will look at to determine if you qualify for a trial. So if you're looking at clinical trials, it is important to keep your labs updated so that you get an accurate list of trials.
Thanks, Todd. I know we talked about this a little bit, but I kind of want the audience to get to know what we mean by validate records a little bit more, that it's not just random Joes approving medical records, but we actually have medical professionals on our team. So Patty, do you want to take that and just talk a little bit about why you're qualified to validate and what that kind of means?
Yes, so I'm an international medical graduate, and what we do is what we refer to as validating your profile. Is we double check that the information provided within the medical records is accurate within your HealthTree profile. So everything that you put, all the information that you enter into your HealthTree profile, it matches what your doctors have in the progress notes, all the information from your genetic test results. And as Jenny mentioned, some patients remember all their myeloma story from start up until today, but some patients just don't remember the specifics, so we take care of that. I would also like to mention that as soon as we validate your profile, this means that we reviewed all the information on your medical records. We'll let you know. As Anna said, you can ask to have a call with us and we can double check that information. So if you have any information that's different from what has been entered and validated, we can double check that. And also something important about updating your profile, as Todd said, it's important to keep it up to date. And within our process, we are only revalidating or updating your profile once per year. So we encourage you to add your information, especially if you have any changes in your treatment, important lab test results, so your most current lab tests, as well as if you see that there are any spikes in any of the lab values. And we can also do that per request. So if you need help with that information, even if it hasn't been a year since we validated your profile, we can go ahead and check some new information. But since we are doing it once a year, we would need for you to request it so that we know that there has been some new information added and we can double check that with you.
Yeah, just to emphasize that point. So the treatment options that we have in there also in Cure Hub or HealthTree Cure Hub are also dependent on your prior treatments that you've received. So let's say you got your information validated and then 6 months into the year, you start a different therapy. Go ahead and add that. We gave everybody the additional ability to add your own treatments, your start, stop date, things like that. So you'll see that under treatments, past treatments and things. You could add a new treatment, and it's not that difficult of a process, just so we know that that's all factored in, because the logic that shows you the clinical trials and the treatment options is based on your genetics, your prior lines of therapy, your lab values, things like that. So both of those things will be very dependent on keeping your profile current.
I agree. We have a statement from Jan. I like how HealthTree reports the weekly labs, since it gives a clear way to check the highs and the lows from week to week when receiving treatment, and says, unfortunately, I have no twin. So I didn't know if we wanted to talk about kind of making it more generic to find a little bit less of a specific twin. I know we've talked about that in the past, but it is frustrating. I do validate that feeling that, oh man, I don't have that twin that I wanted. But let's talk about that feature of HealthTree Cure Hub.
Yes. So the twin machine has you can select everything on your the myeloma profile that you have, or just some of it. So most likely you're looking at an exact same twin and you might not find someone, but if you just select some of them, you will find them. If Jen, we'll get in contact with you if you can send us your email, and we'll be really happy to schedule a call with you and do like a video call if you want. Share your screen so we could do it together and we can teach you how to do it. And then also, if you have questions about how to enter your labs, look at your treatment options, we've had previous webinars, and if you send us an email, we'll be really happy to share the recordings with you so you can follow the steps or schedule a call with us.
Yeah, that just brought up a really good point. In the follow-up email, I should probably include the recordings from previous sessions so they can catch up if they want to. So thank you for reminding me of that, Anna. I also just wanted to echo what Anna was saying. They are so willing and excited to help you. It is their job, but it's also their passion. And Anna has so many people on her team, Patty included, that sincerely love the patients and love their work and want to help you. Don't ever feel embarrassed or feel that you're annoying us or her team by reaching out, because we're really here to help. We really do care about you and your myeloma journey. And that's the whole reason why Jenny started this. That's the whole reason why we've created these products and programs, is to help you. So reach out to us and let us know how we can best help you. Like Anna said, they text, they call, they can video chat, they can reach out to you in whatever way you feel most comfortable, so that we can make your myeloma journey easier. That's the whole point of this. And I just wanted to make sure that that point came across, that we are serious about this work because we're serious about helping you, accelerating a cure by furthering research through HealthTree Cure Hub, but also helping you in your journey. So yeah, that's my little tangent that I just wanted to share. We do have time for a couple more questions if anyone has something. While we're waiting for more questions to come in, if there are any, I just wanted to mention in August, we're going to be having a session in the newly diagnosed myeloma patients chapter, where Anna's team comes to talk about how we can get to know our labs a little bit more. When the doctor gives us the results, or when we get those results, sometimes it's really confusing to decipher and understand what's going on, what are the key numbers that I need to be paying attention to. And so hopefully through this session, the medical professionals that work on our team will be able to explain to you a little bit more what tracking or knowing your labs really looks like, and understanding what's important to follow. We do have a couple more questions. So someone says, is there help for patients who are stage 1 high risk, who have received 3 doctor recommendations, who are saying I'm at the best place to receive a stem cell transplant, but Medicare uses a different kind of staging that does not cover stage 1, only 2 and 3? That's kind of complicated, but
I would say we're not medical practitioners, so I would talk to your doctor about the options. But for newly diagnosed high-risk patients, there are a tremendous amount of clinical trials I would consider. And if you look at the whole breadth of myeloma therapy, there's a lot going into the immunotherapies, like using CAR T up front for high risk patients. And how effective is that? Because we know you can already go get a transplant per se, or do a triple combination, or do something like that further along in your therapy. But will some of these immunotherapies work at the beginning when you're closer? Your immune system is probably stronger than 10 years of myeloma therapy. That might be an option. So I would strongly suggest that you can work with our team, and we can help you understand which clinical trials are open to you. You can also work with Spark Cures, because that is what's embedded in HealthTree Cure Hub right now to find clinical trials that are specifically to you, and then you can see them across the country, not just for the particular facility that you're getting a consult at. But I would highly encourage you to talk to your doctor, especially if you're at a myeloma center. That's the number one thing you should do, is be at a myeloma academic center and be working with a specialist to talk about what are the options for a high-risk newly diagnosed myeloma, because you do not want to undertreat newly diagnosed high-risk myeloma. I hope that makes sense. And
Thank you, Jenny. I think we will finish out with some outro announcements. We really appreciate your attendance here today, and I really appreciate my team for joining me today. It's so exciting to be able to share these resources with people who are interested. Let's see, gotta make sure I'm sharing the right screen here. Okay, so our next chapter meeting will be next week. As I mentioned earlier, this is a unique event for members of the Myeloma Crowd community who live outside of the United States, and also others who perhaps aren't in our community program yet but would like to be. We want to highlight which features of HealthTree Cure Hub are available and beneficial for international patients, so don't miss it. You may be interested in other Myeloma Crowd community events that we have coming up. Tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern will be our newly diagnosed myeloma patients chapter. We'll be talking about discovering if you're high risk at diagnosis, so kind of a backlog to what we were just answering. Arjun Van Manen, who is a representative from Skyline DX, will speak to us about the Sky 92 test, which can go even deeper than the FISH test to tell you if you're high risk at diagnosis. Wednesday, the 28th of July will be a crazy awesome day with 3 events. Our first will be at 1 p.m. Eastern. It will be the Selinexor Support Group chapter, and we'll be discussing the Carry Forward program that not only helps financially, but also with emotional support and nurse care. At 3 p.m. Eastern is our Connect with the Myeloma Crowd Chapter event that I just mentioned for international patients. And at 7 p.m. Eastern is the Nutrition and Wellness for Myeloma chapter. This is an amazing opportunity to hear from Forks Over Knives contributor, Dr. Robert Osfeld. He's a nationally recognized cardiologist, and he's going to share with us the importance of a healthy heart and how nutrition can play a key role in achieving not only a healthy heart, but also a healthy lifestyle. We want you to invite your friends, your families, your neighbors to hear from this celebrity, and it really is a privilege to hear from him, and we're really excited. So we want as many people as possible to take advantage of that. The link to sign up for any of those events and even more events I haven't mentioned today is found at the bottom of the slide, and it will also be sent out in our follow-up email within 48 hours of the event's conclusion. Once again, a thank you to our sponsors, Bristol Myers Squibb, Amgen Oncology, Genentech Adaptive Biotechnologies, Sanofi Oncopeptides, Karyopharm Therapeutics, and Takeda Oncology. And thank you to each of you for helping us build a strong Myeloma Crowd community. We appreciate you and hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
thanks, everyone.